lot of confidence coming out of Twisted Minds there. That said, obviously, I have yet to interview a team who goes like, no, we're going to lose this one. So, like, obviously, you have to have the confidence, especially if you're going up against such a dominant team as Falcons.
And I think the hope for them is to be sort of a wrench in the works and to play a strategy, maybe an unconventional one. Maybe they can bring out some of their strongest heroes. I do think Quartz is such a heavy hitter for this squad. You know, if he can take it to like a Widowmaker map, there is always that X factor that he can just, you know, go so crazy that no level of team strategy can stop him. But I think Team Falcons is really in form. I think this is a great meta for them. Like any rush meta, I really like Falcons on. I feel like that's probably their strongest suit as a team, although people think of Korean teams as like being the best at dive, and Falcons are incredibly good at that style too. I really think Rush is the place that they could potentially win it all. And so really Twisted Minds should just be only the first step on Falcons' journey here. I think their eyes are pretty firmly on the trophy, looking way beyond this first match.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go into this match and think, like, what can we learn from this experience, you know? And then we'll have to make a lower bracket run. That is how much of a favorite Team Falcons really is here. But also, that's kind of like the attitude you need as a player, right? You can't go into this match thinking like, oh, you know, we're going to lose, you know. That's not the mentality for a pro player,
Right.
So, you know, you need to be ready to learn something from this match as well and maybe take a few things from it, especially if you're playing one of these niche compositions, right? If we're going to see the Pharah or whatever it is going to be from Twisted Minds, right? How can we figure out to establish a win condition for ourselves? And that has been the question for a lot of teams here in Stockholm who might not favor the Maga composition. Well, how can we work around that? How can we play around that? Now Twisted Minds are going up against Team Falcons. They obviously haven't practiced much against them because they knew they were going to face off in the first round, right? So this is going to be a true test for them and see how does our composition, how does our win condition, our style match up against Team Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the teams have been coming to Europe prior already to this tournament to, you know, get their scrims in, get the practice in, acclimate to the temperature, I don't even know what. But as you said, Falcons probably did not play against Twisted Minds. Is there a way that Twisted Minds can use that in their favor, going under the radar? Do you think Falcons is a team that can be thrown off by wonky comms? Not really. They have so many, like,
They're too like well-rounded. That is the problem with Team Falcons, because legitimately both Korean teams, if you haven't been watching Overwatch Esports, because there's only 2 spots for Korea, all the best Korean players, they were like, well, we're just going to make super teams. And then you end up with Team Falcons, Crazy Raccoon, arguably the 2 best teams ever established in Overwatch Esports, right? And so now you go up against Team Falcons and they're like super well-rounded, incredible mechanical skill, and I don't think they can be thrown off, right? You kind of have to hope that Team Falcons have a bad day, and maybe you can abuse some like individual matchup. Maybe you can force like a clash, like Jake talked about, because clash is one of those game modes that is new to the game, and also maybe you can find something going your way in that game mode, right? But for the most part, Team Falcons, I think they'll be ready for whatever Twisted Minds throw their way.
Yeah, I think the hopeful case here for Twisted Minds is that maybe Falcons have been focusing so much on the longer tournament, focusing on like whatever the dominant meta is. If it's Amalgam meta, they're probably really emphasizing in their practice, how do we win this mirror? How do we beat the best teams in the world on the most dominant comp meta-wise? But if you're Twisted Minds and you're playing something unconventional, and Falcons have invested all of their prep time into like winning a super specific mirror match that you just don't give them, I think that's probably your best bet here for Twisted Minds. I think you kind of want to do anything to break this expected tempo of the match. If you let Falcons come into this fully prepared and like expecting everything you're going to throw at them, honestly, I think they are just going to overpower you in terms of their raw performance, their team play, their understanding of the meta. But if you make the match a little bit weird, right? You're picking, maybe you bring in some map picks that change the dynamic or bring something up that Falcons haven't seen in scrims, that's probably your best hope, is that they'll make some sort of mistake in that match day adaptation. But like you said, you know, even in that scenario, even if Falcons is on the back foot, even if they're adapting live in the match, I just have so much faith in these players. I mean, Stalker and Proper in particular on the DPS line have been so impressive all year round, not just because of their, you know, performance on their best heroes, which has been magnificent, but their ability to constantly role swap. I mean, those 2 players, a lot of times like enabling Proper to play whatever he feels is like the most impactful character that meta. Stalker just feels absolutely any other character in the roster and looks amazing on it. I mean, I was blown away by his May at Esports World Cup, not something I knew he had in the tank like that with such incredible skill and performance on the hero. So honestly, this is a team where you can throw them, you can put them on their heels, you could try to mess with them, but they're just such super strong players. I don't think it's going to be easy.
It won't be easy, that's for sure. Tall order for Twisted Minds in their first game, but enough from us here on the desk. It is time to get into the first OWCS World Finals match of the day.
space station and still have some game left in them.
Toronto to fight tower over the competition. Oh, that's not supposed to happen.
Oh, that is absolute filth. What? What did I just see? That might be the kill that gets them there.
The Crazy Raccoon run away with yet another map.
Thomas Twisted Minds book their tickets to Stockholm.
And these birds of prey move one notch up the food chain. Falcons with the wind under their wings.
The previous king of EMEA remains.
It's time for a showdown, everybody. Let's go!
What's good, DreamHack? How you doing today? Oh, come on, we could do it one better than that. How you doing today? Yeah, that's what I like to hear. Of course, we're here for the first Overwatch Champions Series World Final. Now, I'm usually saying OWL in this instance, but it's nice to kind of mix things up a little bit here. Start a new era of Overwatch, if you will. You guys excited to watch the matches today? Don't worry, we'll work on the energy as the day goes on, all right? I got you covered. But let's go ahead and bring out your first team because this match, well, let's see how it all goes down. It's the #1 seeded squad, absolute juggernauts. Welcome, Team Falcons!
Has already emerged in Team Falcons. Superstar players across every single role. Any hero you could ask them to play, you know they are going to deliver. Definitely a team to watch.
And let's go ahead and bring out their opponents, the H seed, it's Twisted Minds!
Twisted Minds come in as a bit of an unknown, but there's nothing unclear about Quartz hit gameplay. An absolute monster when it comes to the hit gameplay, capable of taking control of the server and asserting his dominance. But will it be required of him here this weekend? In a meta that shy away from Quartz expertise, maybe we'll look towards Lambda instead to take control.
It's now time to get this show on the road. Coaches fist bump, players take the stage, and let's send it over to your casters. Put your hands together for Mitch and Matt.
What a pleasure it is to be back here. It's been 7 years since we've been at a DreamHack in Sweden, and much has changed in the world of Overwatch, but one thing remains the same. We have the very best teams in the world fighting for this OWCS World Final.
Yeah, and this is a pretty rough draw here for Twisted Minds early on, right? It took them a lot to even kind of get here, right? A really up and down season overall. They think they're in at the end, and then they figure out that UB has to play a match, and they got to win a map.
They have to win a map with UB against SSG.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a circus, and they find themselves getting here, which is great, but you're going up against an absolute juggernaut in Falcons early on. Speaking of Twisted Minds, the other day with Danny, they seemed like they were like, hey, you know what, if we're going to have to play against Falcons, we'd rather do it early on. First to two adds a little bit of a different mix to it, so they seemed fairly as confident as you could be going into this match.
I mean, really, how confident can you be up against the team that came out of the Asia region as the #1 squad? Falcons weren't expected to be in that position, right? Crazy Raccoon had been reigning. We saw them win in Dallas, but we saw a meta shift, and honestly, one of the greatest regional finals that we've maybe ever even seen in Overwatch, a 7-map banger that saw Falcons triumph. Wasn't the first time they'd beaten Crazy Raccoon. They beat them in the Korea sort of regional season, but still, they are looking insane.
Well, you look at this roster for Falcons, and you're just like, how do they lose, right? Like, you kind of look at it on paper, and you're like, wait, there's another team that was better than them throughout the year. So we will kick things off with Control to start things off. Obviously, it'll be loser pick, some different rules between whether it's Faceit League or OWCS. It'll be Oasis to kick things off.
Yeah, it's a first to two, so a little bit unique to see that, at a tournament like this. But again, it does mean winning that first map means so much because you're guaranteed the map pick in map number 3. So even if you sort of drop that map 2, your opponents can throw a silver bullet at you. You're massively advantaged if you can just win on Control.
Yeah, the strategy shouldn't be to lose, right? We've had a lot of losing is learning over the past few years. This would not be a time to lose and learn.
The learning's done.
Yeah, the learning's been done. We've had 7 years really of just kind of like high-end Overwatch. We know what we're going to see. I'm interested in what we get meta-wise at this event, right? I know a lot of different changes kind of coming on on in. You think potentially we see some now more brawl-type rush-style compositions? I think that's what we end up having here.
Yeah, I think the desk has been talking about it a whole lot, but if you've been watching the OWCS throughout the year, there's been a pretty significant break and a change-up in metagame, which we sort of noticed, right? Juno was slightly tweaked to make that orbit array a little less strong, but in general, she's still powerful. She's still the support you want to bring into most of these comps. And with Orisa getting nerfed pretty heavily, a lot of teams have gravitated back towards playing the Malga, and we're in a double flex DPS metagame now. A lot of Reaper, a lot of Echo brought in there, but teams are making some variations, right? There's space for Genji, and there's also some maps in the pool that do allow you still to play that dive style, which is something that, of course, our teams from the Korean region have always been terrifying.
Yeah, that's exactly what they want to do. I think as long as you can kind of play a rush style, I think that's exactly what EMEA wants to do.
All right, folks, it's time to get this one underway. Here on the stage for our first of two, it's Team Falcons and Twisted Minds. Here we go, folks, our first battleground of this OWCS World Finals. It's going out here on Oasis. And the map pick, of course, of Falcons being the toppest of top seeds coming in.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, right, I know the teams from the Asia region, right, they like to prefer to play dive-centric comps, right? That's where they have the biggest advantage over teams from NA and EMEA, right? That's been proven historically over a long period of time. But Falcons here early on, looking potentially kind of playing what we think is going to be the meta, right? Like Malga kind of had a really prominent showing middle of the year, then kind of faded away completely. But now back in the mix in a big way.
Twisted Minds that might have their own take on this composition, Matt. Quartz on a hit scan is definitely where they want to be.
And playing Lambda, right? Like typically we see Lambda play like a Pharah, for instance, right?
Here we go.
On the hero, and that's exactly what he picks up.
Okay, Ashe definitely getting buffed recently, right? Definitely getting a lot of bonuses for attacking targets that are already burning in terms of ult generation and cooldown reduction across her kit. So it's a decent option. But Proper's going to be here on the Genji. Definitely one of his best looks, and Lambda's Pharah here. Twisted Minds bucking the trend and playing their way, really similar to the last meta.
Yeah, and look, Lambda and Quartz playing these heroes, right? It may not be what we see a lot of teams do throughout the weekend, but they are so good on these heroes that they potentially could be really the only team that makes it work.
Falcons not quite putting themselves onto the point yet, but here comes the charge in. Stop, connect. Stalker's already in the middle of the fight now. Falcons definitely taking some space, and Quartz is under a little bit of pressure off, and that's side room, and Stalker will run him down. Meanwhile, though, Smurf has fallen. Twisted Minds have the Malphur advantage for the time being, and the poke from Lambda is still coming in. Falcons trying to spread on the point here, but TVNT finally deals with the Genji, and Twisted Minds will have control.
Well, I mean, that's kind of Twisted Minds' endgame, right? Their perfect endgame, right, would be to be able to live with through some of this poke, right? If the dive comes in with the Genji and the Reaper doesn't take advantage fast, that's when you can start getting value out of the Dynamite from the Ashe, the Pharah poking down some damage, and then it's just kind of like you rot out over time if you're Falcons.
Twisted Minds will give up a bit of percentage to do this because they want a more contracted pre-fight. A chance to get some real poke damage down where Falcons want to rush them down. Here come the torpedoes now. Thrown out by Chia, trying to stay safe, but an orbital ray is now available. Twisted Minds built their barrage, but that's about it for the time being. Here's the ray, though. Falcons use it to bully the Twisted Minds off the point.
Oh, and I mean, Twisted Minds, you were going to disengage here. You could have came back with your own ultimates, but you lose Quartz. That's a huge loss there, right? You got Smurf really low. That kind of got the orbital ray out. They need to push up with the orbital ray. It's kind of what you want to do behind it. Twisted Minds, they try and disengage, but not far enough as they end up losing Quartz.
Falcons, though, will now be fighting without their orbital ray. It's definitely one of the most important ultimates to use here, but there are ways to win the fight without them. Here's another charge stomp coming in from Smurf. Now Field are going to pop the rally. And we're going to see Lambda try and circle around to the outside. It's Cardiac Overdrive active in for TVNT, and he's trying to respond. Back to the point now. Twisted Minds fancy a disengage. They've used both of their support ultimates here. They've got the point, but they haven't won the fight just yet. It's going to get Kane's fight thrown down straight away. Here's the barrage in over the top, and Smurf is brought down by the Bob. Bliss able to double down, and Twisted Minds should be able to equalize off this.
Yeah, it's a lot thrown in there for Twisted Minds to be
Everything.
able to do that, right? So Falcons, you kind of come back, you'll end up having a cage fight plus a blade of your own, right? You also have a sick combo, right, with the Reaper inside of the cage fight. Yes, the bat is quite interesting, right?
You've got to do it against the Pharah map.
Yeah, the Immortality field, it adds a little bit of pressure onto the Pharah.
It's really about being able to shoot that Pharah down. Nothing else on Falcons. Composition really
You see
precious
Robda
there.
connecting with these like directs, right? Shio goes really low, Fielder goes really low, just delays everything.
In come Falcons again. Geo now has that orbital ray available once more. Twisted Minds already used their cardiac overdrive, and here comes Smurf with the cage fight thrown down. But what opportunity to get kills off this. Fielder eventually gets rid of MCD, and that's the backline of Twisted Minds crumbling. Falcons should have a chance here to bring the fight back into their favor.
Yeah, I mean, this is really good for Falcons, right? You end up taking the lead. You don't end up having to use your Ray. You end up just switching over to the Baptiste and building up an Amp Matrix during this. And then you're going to have both of your damage shield or EPS ult. So you're in a fantastic spot now if you're Falcons, looking at probably 1 or 2 more fights at the most.
You're in control of the point. You have the big ultimates. Twisted Minds have been pretty fast and loose with a lot of their key abilities, and this is really a macro metagame. You've got to manage those ultimates well. Oh, Fielder gets taken down early. Lapter's able to find him with a long-range rocket. And there's a disengage here for Twisted Minds, but they have a chance to come back in and recapture here.
Yes, this one's been a little bit closer than I actually anticipated. I thought Falcons, really coming into this series, huge heavy favorite, but I think as we'll see time goes on, right, maybe this meta brings these regions a little bit closer than we've historically seen in the past. That time, a huge kill onto Fielder to open things up, really set up Twisted Minds in a good way. And there was also the Orbital Ray user for Falcons, right? So they weren't really able to get much value. They already lost Fielder. You weren't able to kind of go and aggressively follow that up. So Twisted Minds went as good as it possibly could.
Fielder needs to have his wits about him here. That poke damage is a big problem for someone like Baptiste. And there's no shields to hide behind for Falcons. So that Ash and Pharah are definitely legitimate threats. Already quite low. Propper's been forced to burn the deflect here. And Twisted Minds setting up for one last fight. It's going to be an Ant Matrix throwing down, but Smurf is low, and Falcons can't get forward of it for the time being. Fielder at least is able to get their Malga ready, and Twisted Minds are happy to back off. Here's an Orbital Ray. They're going to go for it now. It's getting heavy. Propper with the blade. Has to spend most of it deflecting, and Lapter's taking him down with the barrage. And the bot gets involved. Fielder can't do anything about it. And Twisted Minds get it done their own way.
I mean, they played everything perfectly there towards the end, right? They disengage there when the Amp Matrix comes in. They don't rush. They don't fall under pressure, right? Once the point gets flipped back and it's at 99, they get a nice job getting on contest. And then the support ultimates end up being huge there, right? Proper ends up using a blade, but Rally Orbital Ray, not really much you're going to be able to do that. And this is just like a weird matchup because I'm sure that Twisted Minds is playing compositions that not many others are, not many other teams I'd imagine are going to play Ash with Pharah here, right?
Generally, the consensus is the hit scan is really weak, right?
Yeah, I think you're going to see more of kind of what Falcons is doing, but it's a really, look, they've mastered playing some of these heroes on the side of Twisted Minds. Makes it really difficult.
I'm saying that late October patch that gave Ash a bit of a buff across the rest of her kit is just a boost for Quartz, really. Some great poke, though, coming down from Labs. Twisted Minds, again, much like they did in Stage 4, they are leaning into their strengths here against what should be a hostile metagame for it. University went well. City Center, though, a little bit of a different kettle of fish. Let's see if that same approach is still succeeds here.
That's a direct onto Chio, and then Quartz, I mean, one of the best hit scans in the world. He easily finishes him off.
Great start here again for Twisted Minds. Now they're going to get cleaned up here. Lapter eventually opts to clean up Fielder. And we saw Fielder switch to the Baptiste in that earlier map, right? You do feel like you need the Brig if you want to brawl, but playing the Brig against the Pharah is a nightmare.
Yeah, I think now with Echo, Echo can duel the Pharah a little bit better, right? If they get close. The issue is you have Quartz on hit scan on the other side, right? Echo, pretty easy target for Quartz, all things considered. So Twisted Minds, you get control of this point. This point also really difficult to flip back, right? You kind of see a lot of just stall going on in this point, especially as you're moving in towards Ash Pharah.
Yeah, I mean, Falcons have to get to grips with this Twisted Minds comp. They have to hard engage them, but Twisted Minds have quite a lot of mobility considering their setup. So here it is, 35% already for Twisted Minds. Stalker's looking for, oh my goodness, Quartz takes him down early, and now Lapter wants to get into the fight. That cardiac overdrive's not going to do too much for Smurf here. It at least allows him to get out, but there's a barrage developed for the Pharah player now, and Twisted Minds have a massive advantage.
And like I mentioned, when Danny and I spoke to them the other day, they seemed extremely confident, and also that they didn't really seem bothered by having to play Falcons.
You're dead.
Yeah, I mean, by having to play Falcons early on. And I kind of like the approach. At some point, if you think your hopes are to win the entire thing, you're going to have to play this team. You may as well play him in a 1-2 right away.
Quartz there talking with his hands, had to take it off the keyboard to make his point. Twisted Minds here, I think the call is just to keep it calm and collected. They have an orbital ray parity here in this next fight. They still operate off Bob. Bob is going to be such a pain for Falcons to deal with. Forcing Deflect out of Proper, forcing Stalker out of LOS. It really does everything for you here. And Bliss has also built up that rally. Twisted Minds, 5 ultimates to work with, and here we go. Rally going to get popped. Quartz going to get taken down by the stop straight away, though an orbital ray that Falcons are playing inside of it. Lapter's able to find 3. What a massive brace of kills against a comp that's so hard to kill. Stalker's going to be duping Amalga now. They're able to bring TVNT down. That cage fire from Twisted Minds worked against them in the end. Stalker dove on in. Proper has a blade to work with here, but Twisted Minds might just give this up. They did spend 4 ultimates, though.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way. I mean, Twisted Minds keeping it contested for a little bit. Yeah, you're going to have to give it up.
How do they lose
here,
that? Lapter gets 3 off the bat.
Well, you lose Quartz right away, right? You were saying the Bob is going to be such a nuisance. The Bob would have forced position on the point. They lose Quartz right away, and that's quite a brutal loss early on.
It's a blade. It's going to be Proper making use of it, expeditiously carving a swath through Twisted Minds. That is beautiful. 3 kills off the blade, and TM are going to have to go back to the drawing board again, this time without Bob.
As we'll see Quartz go to the Widow here, maybe just trying to get a shot off the spawn, as he will now go back to Ashe. But look, at some point you were going to have to go against the blade. Now it's gone, right? You're going to give up a little bit more percentage. I think for TM, you've already got that 1 round in your back pocket. You're probably playing around, okay, how do we get like 1 more big, set of ultimates to use? But that's going to be a headshot on the Stalker.
This is a pick-based composition. This is not even a macro setup here for Twisted Minds, so it doesn't matter what the ultimates look like if they can just get kills at the start of the fight like that one. Proper's trying to pressure Quartz down. He knew it'd be coming, so he opts to drop off that higher ground, and now a mutual knockdown means it's easy damage for Lapter to force Smurf back out of the fight. Still Proper at large. Still a bit of a nuisance here. Another deflect from the Genji, and Lapter has to conk himself backwards. Here's Smurf, Cardiac Overdrive expiring, but Chio gets brought down. This might be the opportunity. A trade though, Proper's able to get rid of Quartz now, and that orbital ray has been developed. MCD's gonna let it go straight away in order to help his Malga win the frontline fight. It's Smurf eventually has to capitulate. Now the cap has begun. Proper hovering a little bit low to the ground, eventually gets brought down by TVNT, and Falcons have to try and stall this, but the point flips back. Can they get a touch here? Stalker, it's going to be Fielder that instead looks to drop down, and a quick stop there from TVNT to force to bring away a cage fight to catch Fielder, and Chio inside of it. And there you have it, folks. EMEA has arrived.
Don't think many people had that one on their scoreboard to kick things off.
No, sir.
TM with a 2-0 win here in map number 1 here against Falcons. And Twisted Minds, they're going to keep running this. Falcons going to have to stop it eventually.
I mean, what better way actually to illustrate the current tension in terms of the metagame here? There are a bunch of teams that really do want to play Echo, Reaper, Genji, and that Malga shell as much as possible, and really just try and play for big ultimate fights, right? Make use of the orbital ray as best as possible. Now, the Pharah Ashe composition doesn't necessarily use that Juno ultimate as powerfully. What they do is they can get picks and big kills before the fight starts, outside of the use of ultimates. And so in that sense, economy of ultimates not so important for this Twisted Minds comp.
Right, you can use the orbital ray a little bit more defensively, right? If you're Twisted Minds, and then also when they have to engage on the side of Falcons, right? You have the dynamite to put down some ticking damage. Then you see constantly, if you just look at the top of the scoreboard, the lab that just chunking players down with those direct hit rockets. It also kind of stalls Falcons a little bit, right? Can't exactly push in when you have 1 player down. You're gonna have to wait. Then like all of a sudden now Lab is putting more damage down on the entire team. It just kind of starts to snowball.
I just want to point out how I think exceptional this is from Twisted Minds, because every conversation that we've had in the lead up to this tournament's come from players that and teams that felt that there'd be one way to play, there'd be one style that really would dominate, a sort of neo-GOATs, so to speak, where everyone was on the Malga Juno comps with Reaper. Twisted Minds bucked that trend straight away.
So the fans came out to see, the neo-GOATs.
Listen, we all yearn for 2019, Matt. We all have that framed photo of the GOATs comp, but it's great to see such a difference here. And metas evolve over tournaments as well. We saw it happen in Dallas. We see it happen in our stages as well. We might see a few more teams caught onto this if they haven't already gotten the idea that there is a way forward with Ashe and Pharah.
I mean, maybe, but I don't think, like, to play an Ashe and a Pharah, you have to have 2 players who are, like, excellent on those heroes.
What about Ents? Do you think
and,
Ents can do it?
yeah, like, a team like that could do it, right? Like, but it's, like, not many, right? And then also, like if you're like, let's say that's where the meta went, you feel awesome if you're Twisted Minds, right? I mean, you're like, hey, we'll take our chances really with just about anybody. And you see the difference in terms of damage dealt, right? Just right there with the amount of damage that Far is putting down.
So much of this poke damage going out. When you see a Brig player being forced to switch to Baptiste, I think in this shell, in this comp, it feels like a capitulation, like a concession. It's like, I cannot do anything as Brig right now. And the Baptiste, in many senses, is a bit more fragile, more vulnerable to poke damage as well. Brig obviously can play around that shield a little bit, and maybe not considered as good in a full brawl fight, but Falcons aren't getting the fights they want. They're not getting that 5-on-5 full engagement.
Yeah, and a rare pick here for Falcons, right? Not often we kind of say that Falcons has a map selection.
Yes.
And I think it'll be very telling, right? If they want to try and go to a map that's a little bit more, dive-centric, right? Where maybe they can force something like a Winston or a Diva up towards that high ground. Teams even, experimenting with ball potentially, right? In some type of scenarios. Where they decide to take us, I think will be really fascinating and kind of lead into how much they were bothered by map number 1.
Falcons are a team that in past metas have been able to play the dive setup pretty well. I mean, look at their team. They are very well equipped to play Genji. They can definitely play that Winston if they wanted to, but it's quite possible that most of their prep and their scrim blocks have been around this Malga, Reaper, maybe Genji sort of composition. So they might not feel inclined to make a huge switch as soon as they've gotten onto the stage. It is double elimination, right? But this is only a first of 2, which is, in layman's terms, a best of 3 virtually. So they have to make a pivot here pretty quickly. I even see a little bit of a substitution here on the stage. Yeah, Hanbin coming in for Smurf.
Okay, so Hanbin coming in here probably tells you, obviously, they're not going to go to like something Winston-based, right? Because that would be Smurf, Ball as well.
Another Overwatch League champion for the
yeah.
For those keep track at home.
The chick got him laying around.
Yeah. Had him sat out the back.
Yeah, you're like, well, Malga, Sigma, like maybe there's like a Diva opportunity here, like Queen, right? Hanbin has a good Queen, so maybe
a good Queen.
So they go to New Junk City. So this is a map where like maybe Far is not like the best, but Malga's still extremely strong. I wonder if this is to match the Malga maybe with somebody you feel like could be a little bit stronger on the hero, or to just ditch it completely and try and play Queen.
I still think that Twisted Minds are going to try and play Farah on this map, but we've seen teams that try and play Projectile have sometimes played Venture here, something that can supplement the Malga dive a little bit more effectively, a map that is a little bit more enclosed and has decent flank angles for Venture to sort of capitalize on, but we've not seen them used, I'd say, prolifically in any metagame yet.
But you're also kind of playing with house money here if you're Twisted Minds.
Because that's the beauty, winning that control map.
Because you lose this, okay, fine. The third map, you get your map selection that you can pick something that you feel suits you the best, right? Like, this may not be the best map for Farah necessarily, right? Venture, very good here, in combination with the Malga, like you mentioned. But they then have the opportunity for a game decider to send it where they want. I mean, that's a huge advantage here by just getting them map 1.
Yeah, exactly. You basically say, right, what's the best map for, Farah? What's the best map for Ash? We're going to take them there. I'm happy to see New Junk City. We know there are a couple teams that are looking to play more of the Queen than the Malga style. Hanbin's probably credited with one of the most incredible, Junker Queen moments, I think, was in Toronto. It's like a straight-up 5K with a mass to basically turn a fight around when his team was sort of sorely losing it. So I'd say that it's one of Hanbin's most famous heroes, but there's no guarantee we get it here.
And TM is also a bit of a wild card as well, right? Because in terms of the map selection, they're not really afraid to play much of anything, right? Like, would even shock me if they decided to say, let's just put courts on Widow and just play something like towards the end. Like, they're a complete wild card. Like, I think you're going to see a lot of teams throughout this event play, more mirror matchups, right? Maybe you see some of the teams, go towards Queen at times. But I think they're just they're a little bit of an anomaly, right? I don't think you're going to see a lot of teams doing this.
Twisted Minds talked to you and Danny about it when you caught up with them while they were building a stool, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was.
Did they ever finish that, by the way?
No, that was like the finished product.
Right.
The screws were coming out of it as Danny sat on it.
I wouldn't sit my royal behind on that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we had discussed who was going to sit on it and who was potentially going to take the fall.
So Danny's the fall guy, literally.
Well, I volunteered, and then Danny just got like the Danny smile, the Danny smirk, and was like, no, I'll do it. Because I think he was hoping that it just shattered when he sat on it. But no, they seemed super confident yesterday. like even kind of poking a little bit off camera. It was like, you guys like, playing against Falcons kind of rough. They were like joking around about it. Like, hey, like if we have to play them, you want to play them early. They were also like, hey, if we beat them, we feel like we can beat anybody, right? Like they're the best team, right? So if we get through that test early, like we feel like, hey, maybe we're the, leader of the pack.
We're changing, speaking of stools, by the way, we're changing a chair on the stage because Hanbin has one that's perfectly sculpted.
If it was Twisted Minds building it, we'd be going to a break. But
those chairs, pretty easy to put together, actually, I've got to say. They are pretty straightforward. But one thing that was mentioned in that interview was Junkertown, right? We have a situation here where Twisted Minds do get their map 3 pick.
They'll do something like that.
I mean, Quartz of Junkertown is...
Why not? I mean, you have who, many people think is, one of the best hit scans in the world, right? Argument, to be, you can make the argument he's the best, right? And I don't think people would like kind of laugh you out of the room. But yeah, they feel totally fine putting the game in his hands.
It's not in the map pool though. No Junkertown available. So it's obviously something that Twisted Minds used to get them through stage 4, to get them that one map win against SSG, but it's not so much an option here.
Circuit you can play, like if you wanted to play like a long-range hit scan with the FAR, you can certainly do that there.
Yep.
We've seen them do that at that time. Also, like whether it's Runasapi or Coliseum, we've seen them do Ash, Farah on those type of maps, right? So I think it probably would trend more towards that. We've seen them actually play a really good Midtown with that setup as well, right? Really difficult to get through that choke with the Farah and the Ash putting down the damage. So there's some decent maps still in the pool here.
We've even seen Widow picked up on that map occasionally as well. So again, I just want to make it very clear that Falcons do have the capacity to match these kinds of compositions. Like, you do have Stalker and Proper on your team. Right? Yeah. Also, they were intending also to make use of Happy during those Asia playoffs. It just the maps that he was relevant on never really came up according to Junkbox. So
you don't feel bad for Falcons in terms of like, maybe they just don't have the talent, right? No, they definitely have the players.
They just subbed in one Overwatch champion for Overwatch League champion for another, rather. So they've got
for 2 times.
There's layers to this.
Yeah, they'll be all right. Nobody's crying there for Falcons, but Twisted Minds, I mean, that map number 1 puts themselves in such a fantastic spot in this series. It can't be understated.
Now, Hanbin needs to make sure the memory foam of the chair properly molds itself to him before we can start.
We've been watching it mold right there.
In real time. So we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, map number 2 in this first of 2, our first game of the day. It's Falcons versus Twisted Minds. We'll continue, so hang in there. We'll see you in a second. Has completed, and we are ready to jump back into the action here. Live, of course, from DreamHack Stockholm. This is your OWCS World Finals, man. It's great to be here, Mitch Lacey with Matt Morello. We are 1 map into our first best of 2 of the day, and it was Twisted Minds, shockingly, taking it away from Falcons in straight round.
Yeah, I think a lot of people surprised about that result. A little bit of a roster change now for Falcons here. Going into map number 2, their map selection, a must-win, reminding you it is 1st to 2 here in our opening quarterfinal round. So absolutely massive map, now an absolutely massive match, right? A lot of people are like, oh, this one's going to be, you know, 25, 30 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next one. Definitely not the case.
TVNT, obviously the newest addition to this Twisted Mind squad, had to sub out in order for his team to qualify, but they managed to make it here now. New Jack City is the map selection by Falcons, possibly looking for an arena where Farah is a little more bounded.
It would be, you know, I mean, for Twisted Minds, right, you had to expect potentially people taking you here. It would be really interesting if they tried to go like Venture Ash, right? You could do that here, which that would be Labda moving over and playing the Venture. So, we'll see, potentially, I mean, could you play Sim, right? Sim has seen, I know, high play in these types of like MAGA comps in the past. So,
For Twisted Minds, especially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Potentially just a TP out, but Sim obviously a little bit more valid when you have a shield to play around because you are concerned about being poked down. Does Stalker really think about the Cassidy here? Are they considering a Farah contingency? Well, out of the gates we go. We're about to find out, folks. Here come Twisted Minds. With their Ash compositions, Sim will be switched off to Farah. They are going for the old faithful.
So it'll be Cassidy with the Genji here. So I thought potentially even you could have played proper on like Venture as well. Venture's been really good on this map. See the damage from the Dynamite, right? On the proper and Stalker right away. Cardiac Overdrive used really early by Hanbin. You're going to be able to go off of this if you're a Twisted Mind.
Oh, Quartz does a pretty good job avoiding the stomp there. Nice coach to kind of get him out of the radius. TVNT, though, did fall, and now it breaks down into DPS and supports, and Falcons have them beat in that metric.
Now that's where it looks good there for Falcons, right? It's like the early Cardiac Overdrive. There's a kill that goes down for Twisted Minds, but you get proper starting to dash through that back line. Fielder was with him there on a little bit of a flank. There's nothing you can do to stop those two.
On the reset here, Labda now aware that there is a Cassidy at large. Stalker there takes an off angle to try and temper the Farah down a little bit earlier. He's going to have to play a little bit safer, and there might be some flashpoint stages where Farah's just not great here. Always on that off angle. Stalker happy to take a 1v1 against basically anyone here. Here we go. Hanmin goes in straight away. TVNT able to get him with a stop though. Cardiac Overdrive activated for both sides, and the Venn diagrams cross over. The Deadeye though there popped by Stalker for a free reload as TVNT goes a little bit low. Twisted Minds need to disengage here, but they can't get their Ash to safety. Hanbin would be denied.
Yeah, that time it's a damage advantage for Falcons early on, right? Getting TVNT to use that Cardiac Overdrive early. He is getting a Diva treatment here, just being staggered out. As this will be a flashpoint here for Falcons, and they're basically going to take all their ultimates into the next one. Fantastic start.
Yeah, now we're getting into the orbital ray phase of the game, so that's a very volatile engagement, especially with Cardiac Overdrive, right? The stacking of the life steal, essentially, that your team gets inside orbital ray with a damage increase. Only 85 HP per second, down from 100. Juno's still busted, for those wondering.
Yeah. Still good, in case you're wondering. Probably 100% pick rate throughout this event, I imagine, as Twisted Minds trying to get a little bit of better positioning here. Maybe try and take this high ground or at least deny it.
Forty with the bomb ready to go. It's a blade up for proper. His last one was a nasty 3K that still couldn't win them the map there. When we were over on Oasis earlier. Here we go. All the right here from MCD. Chio's going to reciprocate now. Harper inside of it, knocked up into the barrage. That is dirty. Twisted Minds again, characteristically pop everything. Falcons get obliterated.
Send it. Why not? Because it's better here, right? When Falcons have to move through the chokes, right, and take that space. That's where the Farah, can play at a little bit better of an advantage, right? Just spamming these chokes. Yeah, the Sojourn's a little bit odd. The Cassidy obviously pretty slow, difficult to get through some of these chokes. Sojourn doesn't deal with that with the mobility, but I feel like is a little bit less of a threat.
You can farm the Malga for railgun charge and then try and use it on Farah or Lash, right? You're definitely pretty risky. Also, crits now give you like a lot more extra railgun charge. So Malga's got a big head, pretty easy to get those. TVNT caught solo inside the cage fire. It's going to pop the Cardiac Overdrive, and Lapta getting picked off by Chio elsewhere. It's going to be Harpin backing up here, and here comes the stop. It's a catch on Bliss. Falcons get where they came from here as Twisted Minds only allowed 57%.
So, see, that's a nice dash there from proper finishing the last one off. As still Twisted Minds, you get almost 60% here on the points. So we'll see Falcons now with a blade in hand, right? They don't have the cage fight to go with it, but still, you imagine Proper's going to get some good value out of this.
It can be tough, right? Twisted Mind's relatively mobile permutation of this composition.
But it looks like they're almost setting up to like kind of go around on a little bit of a flank there, but where Hanbin like could have dashed through and kind of charged around through the choke, but they actually give it up.
Here we go. Who are we looking for? Quartz seems to be the option. It looks like he's already used that coach gun. Stun came out there from Bliss. Nicely done with the rally, but Proper's not the issue for them here. Chio gets taken down by TVNT, but they've lost Quartz. They don't have that Ash damage, and now Laptor's going to be forced out of the fight entirely. Good double back from TVNT, helps him deal with Hanbin there, and even with Bliss going down, Twisted Minds are still in this fight. Overclock had to be used there by Stalker now when he sees TVNT running at him, but Proper's into the back line, and he got rid of MCD. Laptor popped up for long enough for Stalker to cut him down. And only TVNT alive here is enough, actually, to get the flip for Twisted Minds.
Yeah, but can they hold it? Oh, you have Quartz here on the high ground, just a headshot on the Chios. He tried to walk in there with Stalker, so that might be a huge kill in terms of being able to hold on to the point.
Yeah, unclear what the plan there was for Chio. Maybe felt like it didn't matter if he went backwards or forwards, he'd get caught. So Twisted Minds now going to make his one final fight for this flashpoint here. And Quartz is set up for a pretty good bob position as well. They will allow Falcons out onto the point. TVNT just holding here. They've got to catch the Genji inside the cage fight. That's huge. Proper can't do anything about it. Here comes the Bob thrown down by Quartz again. It's a nasty young going to play with it. There goes Chio. Too close to the wall as a splash damage catches him out. Laptor holding on to this barrage here a little bit low as the orbital rate keeps Falcons healthy for the time being. Eventually going to go for it though, but there's a cage in his way. Hanbin able to throw that down to shut off the barrage. The fielder falls here. Hanbin is on his own now. Not even a cardiac overdrive is going to keep him in the fight. Twisted Minds able to push back. And they should be able to take this flashpoint. It's only Proper to stall for now, and Stalker off in the periphery. They've given it up, and now we're even.
Yeah, man, TVNT able to hold on to that point for a little bit while he was alone, and then Quartz on the high ground picking up Chio. Really swung it there for Twisted Minds. Allows them to tie it up there. So, interesting. So Quartz, oh no, yeah, this is going to be a switch back to the Ash, just using the dash to maybe get a little bit closer to spawn. Stalker's still staying on the Sojourn though. Quite an interesting choice. We were talking a little bit about it on that point. Going with the Sojourn, you're able to farm up, put some more damage down on the Malga, maybe get some more railguns, but the Cassidy felt like a little bit more consistent damage.
They're following up, I think, on the damage that Chio's trying to do to Laptor as well. But it's not a guaranteed thing. Stalker really fancying these off angles a lot here, hoping to get 1v1s when he can against these other DPS. They force Twisted Minds off into the side room for now. Proper's getting pretty close to a blade, but Bliss has that rally to answer it. Here comes the stop from TVNT. It doesn't quite connect, but they force Stalker in a bit of an awkward spot now. Falcons drop to the low ground. They cap the point, but Hanbin's a little bit low. If they can capitalize on this, Twisted Minds would have it, but Proper without the blade goes to work on the TM, gets smashed.
Yeah, it was when they dropped down, it's a little bit of a risky position, right? Because you're playing from both those. There's really only two ways you can go. I think you're going into the bar, but I mean, they go aggressive right on in, and you end up holding on, right? You have that blade yet again. Twisted Minds did do a nice job, though, when Proper popped that blade the last time, right? Bliss with the rally, got a stun on, was able to keep a few players alive. So potentially the blade not as huge of an impact here.
Bliss is definitely holding the rally for exactly that. It's the only way they can stop the Genji in their tracks. High ground being held by Falcons here. Twisted Minds still drew to the low ground now. It's going to be a rally popped here preemptively. Proper knows he's going to have to contend with that bash, but Bliss hasn't connected it quite yet. Proper into a deflect, and Stalker's now going to come in with that overclock here, but an orbital ray is going to keep Twisted Minds healthy. Here's the bomb. Stalker still has a couple of shots to throw out here, and Lapti is low, but has a barrage available. A cage fight deployed here for TVNT, and a barrage will herald the end of the fight. Twisted Minds have to spend every penny they have to stop Falcons from taking this flashpoint.
I mean, it's everybody, right? You have both support ults being used there by Falcons as well, but it's the cage fight plus that Bob, right? The Bob gets on in. It's a nice response there for Twisted Minds. Blade is popped by Falcons. You get the rally in response, and then once the overclock is, that's when the orbital ray comes, and it's a nice cage fight and some other ultimates thrown in there from Twisted Minds that flips it.
Does the cage fight here. That's the, whoa, my goodness. MCD just crumpled. Proper's able to get in there and deal with Bliss, and the cage fight ultimately not required. This should be Falcons to take this second flashpoint here. Twisted Minds kept it competitive, right? But you can see this comp is a little more restricted on New Junk City.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's why I think you see Falcons decide to go here. Also, a little bit more options in what Falcons can kind of play. Now it looks like just trying to put down some damage as TM comes out of spawn, as it'll be Falcons to get to the point first.
So with TM here, you'll see it at the top of your screen start to filter in. Still no big ultimates developed. That last fight really wasn't gainful for Twisted Minds at all. Whereas Falcons are trending towards both their DPS ults, both that can be used at their own volition to secure player advantages, to snowball a fight in your favor. Courtier is getting poked down really heavily. This is now becoming a bit of an issue for the Ashe. Here comes Hanbin, but he's able to avoid the stomp. It was TVNT that bore the brunt of that initial assault. Stalker's low, but we don't have a dynamite here for 5 seconds. A blade comes in from Proper now. Who can stop him? Bliss already brought down. Hanbin stops MCD into pace. And Falcons don't have to use a rally or overclock. And they've got that Juno ultimate on the way.
And you see how much harder it is for Twisted Minds to actually pick up some of these kills off of the poke damage, right? Quartz puts down some damage on the Stalker, puts down some damage on another player. Lap is not able, with the way the geometry is at the point, not able to just dash shot in and go finish those off. Where on Oasis, you think about some of those turn into kills, right? So the map definitely playing a part here.
Already halfway to a map win, our team Falcons. Now it's going to be a rally popped preemptively by Fielder. Both support ultimates, in fact, and TVNT just cannot hold up in the heat. Stalker gets a little bit of air and brings Lapter down as he hit his head on the roof. And Twisted Minds don't seem to have the answer. They've even made use of that orbital ray in that last fight. It didn't work out. TVNT says, I need to get wheels on. I need to get this Diva into the fight.
And that sucks for Bliss. He is just staggered for a very long time there as he'll have rallies, so doesn't exactly want to switch, right? Is the Diva swap here from TVNT just to get back, get a touch on the point.
One last fight for Twisted Minds here. TVNT from below, at least able to trigger that overtime. A big barrage here for Lapter could be game-changing now. Stalker spotted out in that low ground, but Quartz has already gone down. That's the Ashe removed. Hanbin just can't be touched. He's far too healthy with that cardiac overdrive, and Stalker gets a nice little off angle here to take pot shots at the rapidly crumbling Twisted Minds lineup. Not a darn thing the EMEA team can do, and Falcons even the series.
Falcons, they pick a map that suits them well, and you see what it does there. I also think it suits Falcons well, and it's very difficult for Twisted Minds to deal with and play exactly what they want to play. So Falcons, you see, obviously can play against this type of Pharah composition, getting the map selection to work their way. But now, because TM wins that first map, they get the selection of the decider here.
Well, we've seen the adaptation now from Falcons. Instead of bringing Baptiste in instead of the Brig, they just put Stalker on a hit scan. Let Proper still be dominant on the Genji. This is how things started. Again, it was Proper really going to work here as Lapter was picked off by Stalker on the custody they rolled out with. You can see a little bit of action from Stalker's POV here, but eventually they probably felt like the custody was a little vulnerable to being jumped upon. Didn't quite have the escape mechanics that they needed. Something a bit more mid-range, long-range, like Sojourn definitely was the option. This was nasty, but this was a wombo from Twisted Minds. We were talking about how their style doesn't require too much on 5 ults, but hey, when you have them, might as well throw them in there and guarantee a fight win.
Yeah, it looks good, yeah. And, even though that it's a Falcons map win, Twisted Minds was, kind of competitive all throughout it. I think now, with these, where do we see Twisted Minds take us, right? What is the preferred map selection here? You could go a bunch of different ways, right? When we were looking at the map pool, do you do something that is do you do one of the push maps, right? Like a Runasapi, or maybe even a Colosseo, right? Potentially an option.
I think Runasapi is a great shout. Yeah. That is a map that Twisted Minds used a lot during Stage 4, the main event. Because obviously Pharah can play a lot of the time out of line of sight of an enemy hit scan, because there's a couple of hairpin turns on Runasapi that she can duck in behind and still fire those rockets, get a lot of damage here. But look, all things considered, not a particularly close map. Twisted Minds didn't feel like they really were able to get value out of their Juno ultimates at multiple occasions, right? Losing fights in which they do leverage that orbital ray. And some moments here, from our DPS on the side of Falcons where Proper's able to roll back the years a little bit and show off his Genji prowess.
Yeah, making some plays with the blade, right? Looks fantastic, as Proper usually always does, right? Rarely do you ever see him have a bad game or a bad match where coming out, making some plays on the Genji, getting Falcons a much-needed map win.
So again, we're already seeing a bit of a departure from the expected metagame and style that we've seen, and that's the beauty of the game right now, is that you can sort of make these adaptations, and there is still room for hit scan to have impact. Yeah. We touched on it briefly, right? Ashe's changes in that late October patch, right? That increase her ult charge sort of speed when she's shooting burning targets, and also cooldown reduction on her other abilities when she's doing that. Makes it very, very strong. But Twisted Minds making a map pick here. We've just got word. We know what the map's going to be. King's Row will be selected here Not what I expected, but still a map where Farah's very
So,
valid.
We've seen them play this, so they do a really nice job keeping Quartz like on the high ground on the defensive side of things. I believe it will be TM on attack first.
Yeah.
And you also see Farah be pretty effective here, right? You know, spamming some of those chokes, and we've seen them like have TVNT up on the high ground with like a Maga being able to kind of contest that and hold that. So this is one that you know, TM has definitely played a lot.
When we first saw TVNT come into this team, it was a lot of D.Va play, right? D.Va was very much meta at the time. It was a great option against like some of those Winston-based dive comps. And then we saw this team move on to the Orisa, something that TVNT had to adjust to a little bit, right? There was an admission from Twisted Minds that he didn't really hit the ground running necessarily in that metagame.
TM had a lot of adjustments throughout the
Yes, that is a safe way of putting it. That's right. I mean, but they managed to obviously to make this qualification happen and come out and win that first map so convincingly here is a proof of concept for you know, a reality in which we are not in a one comp world like many people have been speculating. Having seen some collegiate Overwatch, and I mean, if you watch the Aurora Cup, you saw a lot of Zarya. I wouldn't read into that too much. I don't think we'll see that. That's very much a special China flavor. Here we go. Kings Row. It's going to be for our decider map of this first to two selected by Twisted Minds, but you better believe it's a battleground that Falcons are all too familiar with.
No, Twisted Minds, when we were talking with them, I was like, hey, you guys have had a bit of a circus of a year. And they were like, yeah, no, it definitely has been. But they also felt like the chaos of this year and the ups and downs have definitely kind of given them a little bit of, you know, maybe like an advantage, right? They know that they can kind of deal with just about anything, whatever's thrown their way, they are able to deal with. So it'll be Falcons on defense, and they'll actually make the change here. So they'll play the Queen.
Always unbinnable, folks.
And they'll play a Widow. Interesting. So going to go from a big departure here for Falcons.
Quartz takes this every day of the week.
I mean, you feel good if you're Twisted Minds, right? And you get the option of like, hey, we're going to do a Quartz Widowmaker head-to-head. I think they would take that with any team.
Here we go, folks. Kings Row. It's double match point here between Falcons and Twisted Minds. We get ourselves a good old-fashioned Widow throwdown out of the gates.
Double match point. That's a new one.
Right, that one?
Yeah, that's a good one. They win double the matches if they win this one, or is it just...
Both teams are on match point. All right, interesting. Stalker picked up really early, though, by laughter of all people. So now there's no threat on Quartz. He can really just roam around the map and try to find the best line. This has forced Falcons to fight in the shade, so to speak.
And they do a great job of protecting this Widow. You see Proper just trying to find an angle, maybe some pressure on the Quartz, but it is not that easy.
Stalker's back. Oh my goodness, Bliss had his shield down for just a moment, and it's the moment that costs him. Stalker here now wants to try and wrap and look for MCD. Juno's still a problem. Lambda trying to deal with him. Eventually, Quartz gets involved here, but at what cost? He's overextended for that kill. And Proper cleans him up.
When Quartz got the kill, I was like, where is he? When he jumped out the window, I was like, yeah, that's not the spot that he wants to be. I thought, okay, so I thought TM may have actually gone with like an Ashe here, but they'll actually go with a Cassidy. They're going to play this a little bit slower.
Yeah,
maybe not as worried about kind of the Widow, but like, okay, if we get rid of that Genji, right, and just block the line of sight, we're in a good spot, but that's Bliss dropping right away.
And that's another pick off on Bliss early. For whatever reason, TVNT still wants to charge in and maybe look to extract some value here. But as the fight goes on, it's easy for Stalker to find these lines. And with MCD down, Twisted Minds definitely have to get out. They do get 87.1% on that first foray, the result of an early pick-off on Stalker, but since then, things have been slow.
Yeah, and you know, the time here in Kings Row, it seems to just disappear at a faster rate sometimes. Right? You see a fight or two, and then all of a sudden you're in last by territory. Intrasight here for Falcons, so this is going to slow down Twisted Minds for a little bit.
Dangerous here. Oh my goodness, that is Phil Harpin with a rare pace to end them all. Lambda, the only one not caught by it because he's in the bloody air. That is beautiful.
And I also think TM probably didn't expect that to happen, right? Because the Infrasights popped, you're just going to kind of play around the statue here, and maybe you know, you're not going to push. You're just going to waste for time. Ooh. That is a swap in the spawn, and now Quartz going to go back onto something else. So Sojourn here just trying to make a speedy push.
Yeah, revolving door pit scans. Here comes the Proper blade, though. Into a deflect earlier. Quartz takes him down. That's massive. Now with the orbital ray in play, Cage Fight's going to be popped down by TVNT, and Fielder's going to be caught inside Chio. No escape for him either. Twisted Minds will have their point. They made theirs as well.
Just that Widow swap off the spawn. Stalker just looking for something.
The payload.
Nothing he can really do, right? Just kind of Torch jumping around the corner with a fantastic shot. Okay, we have some. Okay, I think they went the Orisa because there was Queen on the other side, and now that Hanbin is on the Maga, I assume, yeah, that's going to be a change back, right? So I think if they would have been the Queen, they would have won the Orisa to kind of counter it, but they're totally fine with this Maga mirror.
Now the Falcons that opted out of it here. Coming out of the gates with the Junker Queen. We still got some moments from Hanbin though, and a pretty solid defense overall for Falcons. Probably bought about 3 minutes off the clock there. There's another pick from Quarters on proper. A headshot, no less. This guy, man, seamless transition online to land. He is hitting.
I'm telling you, there is not a team here that would be more happy to play a Widow mirror than Twisted Minds. That's an early pick off there. And also, like, this is huge for Twisted Minds because you don't have to use the rally, right? You had a rally advantage going into this. You can hold on to the rally, use the rally for pretty much taking this second checkpoint.
And this is the important fight here. Stalker knows there's no escape for him there. Doesn't want to stagger himself out. But much rather respawn, come back. And it's going to be one last chance here for Falcons to stop the cart from getting into the Foundry phase. And there's no big ultimates for them to lean on here either. Just as Matt mentioned, the rally could be saved by Twisted Minds and a barrage. This is a great spot for Farah to get value from an off angle with a barrage. Quartz is waiting for... Oh, okay! A little bit slow there. Timing didn't really benefit him as he was looking elsewhere. But here they come. Going to be a rally pop by Bliss now, but TVNT is so low and Proper gets in his face with a deflect. TVNT, though, still standing well enough. Hanbin, though, is able to push him right on back. Lambda still holding onto the barrage for the time being. Maybe waiting for Quartz to get back into the fight. But TVNT's going to turn tail. This has to be a disengage. And Lambda gets caught again.
Yeah, I think they were playing for like a cage fight or the orbital right there and being able to push behind those. But the Widow pick there from Stalker is massive. You got to feel, when you watch these Widow head-to-heads, right? Quartz is looking at the same position that Stalker was pushing from. Stalker with another headshot on the Quartz. And then as soon as Quartz looks away, Stalker just jumps right around the corner and rips his head off.
Time is ticking. Down to the 90-second mark now. Stalker has that infrasight available. And is going to look to make use of it here by just taking this off angle. Twisted Minds being forced back into the choke is bad news, and they might have tracked this Widow ultimate. Quartz though is close. Oh, okay, doesn't need that. Okay, nice shot there from Quartz. Another big Widow pick off, and now you've got something to work with here. Quartz doesn't have the best angle to punish here. Twisted Minds having to deal with Lambda, that's not great. Orbital Ray comes out, but it's going to be a cage fight used by Hanbin. He is looking just to stay hale and hardy inside of this. TVNT's cage got destroyed. Hanbin was actually aiming at it specifically. Then Proper's close to yet another blade. Twisted Minds had an opening made for the bike Quartz, but that door is about to be shut clean in their face. MCD to the rescue. Proper has to respect Quartz as he drops off that high ground, but in the meantime, Chio found two, and Stalker got two of his own.
The kill from Hanbin onto Lambda basically saves them from losing that fight, right? You get that early pickoff from Quartz, you push on in, TVNT, it's going to be a cage fight with a barrage, and you deal with that far early on. And there's not enough damage for Twisted Minds at that point. They're not able to fight it.
No one.
Still infrasight in hand and now being saved for the final fight. Quartz doesn't have his to work with now, so a distinct advantage for Stalker in the Widow battle. And he's looking, he's hunting. A little bit lucky, Quartz a stay of execution perhaps now. Proper went for the blade, but TVNT's the only viable target for him, but Quartz is down. Stalker eventually gets his, and now TVNT has to get forward. Labdu's at least able to find field up, but now Twisted Minds are down to two players without their Malga, without much chance here of getting to the next phase of the map, and Chio will double down to clean him up. Nice defense here for Falcons.
Really strong there for Falcons. That kill from Hanbin onto Lab is massive. I mean, you get that second checkpoint there. If you're Twisted Minds, you start to get that Widow around the corner, right? Who knows what happens in that type of situation is Hanbin, like he always does, coming up clutch.
Making a switch off the Junker Queen that he came out of the gates with. Put us into that Malga mirror. Stalker was more than happy to take the Widow head-to-head. God, it makes the game so much more volatile when you have a Widow matchup headlining things. The Quartz ultimately doesn't have infrasight for that last fight. Stalker rather holds onto it for so long. Saves it for the perfect occasion to get his opposite number out of the game. And this is a Twisted Minds map pick. They're trying to win the series on this one. That's part of the whole plan after they win control. But I mean, I think if you're any team, you just nod. If you get taken in King's Row, you say, okay, well, we're familiar with this battlefield.
I think the defense here for Twisted Minds is a little bit harder as well because Falcons has shown, like, just for that brief moment, like, all right, we'll play the Queen or whatnot. So, like, for Twisted Minds, like, all right, we're going to come out and play the Maga. Falcons, there's a bunch of different responses they could potentially have to that. You can see them come out with a Queen if they feel like there's an advantage. The Maga, like, there's a load of options here for Falcons.
Just didn't think we'd be saying that in a metagame like this, Matt.
There might not be many other matches where we do say that.
Twisted Minds always looking to do it their own way. So far, it's got them to a match point. It's early Hanzo action there for Stalker. Pretty much same lineup here, Proper and Stalker. Quartz comes out on the Ashe here. And it's something you mentioned at the start of the game, Matt. Twisted Minds do a pretty good job of keeping Quartz safe on that high ground.
Yeah.
Against the Widow, though, you're going to hope so. Oy, okay, Queen time again.
Yeah, so it'll be the Queen swap here. You're going to keep that Widow in the mix. Basically, same kind of composition they've been running, except, switching out the Queen. Let's see how Twisted Minds, especially TVNT, plays around this, right?
Mostly through the hotel, right? Twisted Minds doesn't want to take too much damage. Those Widow headshots can really turn a flag on its head pretty quickly. Harbin backs up here. Doesn't want any of that smoke. It's going to be okay. Even a cardiac overdrive used by TVNT, but Harbin has come back in, but they lose Stalker in the meantime.
They do a good job, even though they use the cardiac overdrive. It forces them to split like in the choke, right? So Hanbin has to rotate all the way out. They feel like, okay, once we get Hanbin out of the equation, now we have players separated here over by the statue, and you have the Pharah right above it, able to put down some damage. So that's a nice play there from Twisted Minds, able to close that gap.
Beautifully done by Labda. Has had to be the one that goes after Stalker on a couple of occasions here. Always a bit scary to do it against the Pharah, but that extra mobility.
If you don't get value out of this Widow, you got to think about making some changes, right?
Yeah, something maybe like Ashe for AoE potential. Okay, big push here. MCD trying to double back and keep Quartz standing. The peel is immense for the Ashe. The fielder goes down.
Yeah, we were talking about it. It's going to be an orbital right here from Chio.
Okay, TVNT, the only one actually affected by that anti-heal. And Chio's going to be brought down by Quartz after the fact. Is this going to be worth it? It looks like Falcons are going to turn it into a fight win, despite MCD going for a late orbital raid. Twisted Minds are not in a position to benefit from it.
I mean, if you got Proper, right? I mean, every fight is winnable there as he kind of dashes, cuts up through 3 players. It's actually Hanbin with the Queen ult, right? That kind of hits a few with the anti, and then they follow it up with the orbital raise. So Falcons with a nice job there on offense. See if they can kind of keep it going here through this choke.
Obviously, this is a bit of an impressive spot to play against Pharah. Labda can just spam these chokes down. With the barrage available, he can throw a vertical one in. In for sight for Stalker. Wants to make sure that Team Falcons have full information when they walk in, but he's going to be the blade from Proper into the backline. But ooh, he needs to take a pit stop and still gets caught. Harmon going to go down to the barrage here. Fielder also coming off second best once more to Bliss. This is good. Twisted Minds establish themselves in this choke.
Yeah, and the Widow's going to be less effective here, right? You would think, just at this part of the map. Proper in a really difficult spot, gets them. Mega really get a pick here. They actually get a pick on an MCD there in the choke, and they somehow able to keep Proper alive.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to back up here on this if you're Twisted Minds.
Yeah.
There's no fight to be had, and you've got to cross this sideline.
Oh.
Quartz gets through. Stalker denied. 3 minutes 21 here to get to the Foundry. In fact, that would be the end of the map, folks. Only one checkpoint here for Twisted Minds on Kings Road. Falcons have a lot of time to work this. They've got a rally parity here into this next fight. Potentially a rampage from Hanbin that could shut Bliss's ultimate down almost entirely. Here's the bomb first. Quartz going to throw that out. Does pop Proper up in the air by the looks of things, but it's disengaged from Falcons away from Bob's damage. Proper never wants to give Quartz free reign here, and it's going to be TVNT here with a stop. In fact, Fielder might have come in with a shield bash. Now the rampage is available for Hanbin. The Junker Queen comes in, and it's a triple catch. TVNT bleeding out. Bliss can't do too much. Twisted Minds exsanguinating in front of the box to victory. And Team Falcons are going to slot this one home, folks. A little bit of a rough start to the series for them, but now on Kings Row, they were more than happy to take it here. And there you have it. Falcons start on the right foot.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you have the rally, if you're going to get hit with that anti-heal from the Queen, as Hanbin connects with just about everybody there to seal the deal for Falcons. Rough start. Pretty good performance from Twisted Minds. I think if you're a TM fan, you feel pretty good now going into, the lower bracket, that your team might not be, 2 and done, right? You feel like there's potential to keep a little bit of a streak alive here in Stockholm, but Falcons take care of business.
I still maintain that it is unbelievably bold to pick Kings Row for that decider map. Maybe you think you have something a little bit more tailored to your style, a little more crafted to your approach. But it's a map where these veterans like Falcons have for years. I mean, like 4 or 5 years. Some of these guys, like, they come into a map and they say, hey, we can flex into a Junker Queen comp. We brought Harmon in for just that reason. We can match your hit scan. Stalker's an incredible hit scan player. We're happy to tangle here with Quartz. Twisted Mind didn't really have a secret weapon or a real distinct edge there.
Yeah, you also see, we've heard a lot about like Malga mirrors and whatnot, but you see now what the Queen can potentially do in certain situations, in certain maps, potentially something you're going to have to see other teams have to play throughout the weekend, as the Queen there definitely took advantage of the Malga in a lot of situations.
But a lot of the murmurings have been in the lead up to this tournament that the Asia region is still the region to watch. Yeah. They're still the strongest, and much of the consternation, the competition might be between NA and EU. But this is a good sign for EMEA. This is by no means their top seed, by the way. You still have ENCE, you still have Space Station waiting in the wings here. So as was sort of teased by a lot of coaches, we might have the most competitive event yet, definitely this year. We're going to head over to Danny with a post-match interview with the one and only Stalker.
Richard, thank you very much. Yeah, I am joined by Stalker from Team Falcons, coming out from a great win against Twisted Minds. Big congratulations. I do want to start off asking you, by that first map loss, I guess, what were some of the problems that Team Falcons had? 자, 오늘 일단 승리 축하드리면서 첫 번째 질문, 이번에 1세트 아쉽게 좀 패배를 했는데 1세트에서 좀 어떤 문제점들이 팀 팔콘즈에게 있었나요?
변수가 많이 나기도 했는데 상대 조합에 대한 대책을 저희가 좀 잘못 생각한 것 같습니다.
I think it really came down to we didn't really expect what the other team were coming out with. I think we didn't really think a lot about their team composition and how we want to sort of utilize that to our advantage. And I think that was the biggest problem. But that was only map 1. After that, you guys did come back a big way. So what were some of the changes that you guys made heading into map 2 and also getting the victory at the end? 자, 그거는 이제 1세트였고 2세트부터 다시 또 좋은 모습을 보여주시면서 승리를 거두시게 되셨는데요. 좀 어떤 변환점이 좀 있었고 좀 어떤 체인지를 좀 만드셨나요?
상대가 히트스캔 쓰니까 저희도 히트스캔 쓰자는 마인드고 이제 게임하니까 동등한 조건이 되어가지고 쉽게 이긴 것 같습니다.
I think the biggest thing was Twisted Minds were utilizing the hit scan, so we also thought maybe we will run our own hit scan as well, I think, and that was the key to our victory today. Everybody give it up for Stalker and Team Falcons one more time. Everybody, that is it for the post-match interview. Zoe, take it away.
Thank you so much, Danny. And with that, we have our first victory of the day as well. Hopefully, we see many more of those, although that is sweating a little bit. I did not have that on my OWCS World Finals bingo card.
No one did.
Twisted Minds is, all the Preds in shambles already. First match into the dumpster.
Huge upset.
Huge upset. No, but like they did exactly. It doesn't matter though. That is a proof of concept for them. They did run out with that Farah, not considered meta. We didn't expect to see much of that. We were wondering what they will be rolling out with. And quite frankly, that firepower with that Ashe and that Farah, that worked really well with them. And a team as experienced and as high caliber as Falcons, they struggle to adapt.
Yeah, I think with Lambda and Quartz, their individual performances on those heroes justify the picks. They're able to find a lot of opening kills on this first map and set themselves off to, like you said, a proof of concept for the series. That being said, right, we talked about Falcons' ability to adapt, ability to respond throughout a long series. This map too, round 2 of Control, they tried to adapt, but I really feel Quartz really came alive here to secure this first map.
Yeah, I mean, there's a small window, like at the start of the fights, where the enemy team is approaching and they're trying to reach the Farah, right? And we saw several times on the first map that Quartz was able to find picks, Lambda was able to find picks, as Falcons were kind of entering and trying to take some space, right? Stalker wasn't necessarily set up on the flanks already, putting pressure onto Lambda. And so there's a small window there, but it's purely a spacing issue. And we saw, Jake, come New Junk City and Kings Row, those are maps that are way more difficult for Twisted Minds to establish that kind of position and make use of the poke.
Yeah, I mean, positionally, I don't hate the idea of this comp, but I think the pace increase that came, especially when Hanbin comes into the server, I mean, the Junker Queen was a huge part of it, but even before Junker Queen came out, right, even on New Junk City playing the Mauga, Hanbin was bringing a much faster pace to the team, and I think that's exactly what Falcons needed. Once Quartz and Lambda had the pressure on them, and on top of that, your match MVP Stalker, I mean, winning the Widow duel pretty convincingly against Quartz. Quartz did find a few kills on him, but I felt Stalker was pretty dominant in a Widow duel, which really should be Quartz's wheelhouse. That should be really your best hope as Twisted Twisted Minds in beating anybody is forcing a Widow Mirror, forcing this pure 1v1. And yet it was really Stalker who impressed me the most on the hit scan roll of this server, showing the versatility across this squad.
Yeah, Stalker has been one of the best players in the world this entire
That
year,
shot
right?
is disgusting.
I mean, it's absurd, right? You think you have an upper hand, you think you have a favorable duel if you're Twisted Minds, and then Stalker does this, right? And I mean, both players can do this, right? Popper can come out on the Widow as well. Just a spectacular performance. Stalker is going to be a pivotal player for Falcons as well as this tournament progresses. It is going to be one of those players we'll look at that could help Falcons across the finish line and maybe secure the trophy. So great start from Stalker here in the last two maps to secure the win against Twisted Minds.
And I love to